Jack Miller stared out the viewport as the Earth transport ship approached the massive space station. The Nexus hung against the backdrop of stars like a gleaming metal flower, its 12 enormous petals representing each of the ancient species that made up the Galactic Council. Soon, humanity hoped to add a 13th. Jack adjusted his diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. As Earth's ambassador to the Council, he carried the future of humanity on his shoulders. It had been only 30 years since humans discovered faster-than-light travel, a mere blink compared to the thousands of years the Council races had traveled among the stars. "We're docking in 5 minutes, Ambassador," said the pilot over the intercom. "Thank you, Captain," Jack replied. His assistant, Lili Nguyen, handed him a data tablet. "I've updated the briefing materials with the latest intelligence reports. The Council is discussing the Void Strider situation." Jack nodded. The mysterious Void Striders were the reason Earth had pushed for early admission to the Council. Human deep space probes had captured disturbing footage of Void Strider technology that the Council seemed unaware of. The ship docked with a gentle thud. Jack and Lily walked down the ramp into the cavernous docking bay of the Nexus. A blue-skinned alien with 4 arms waited for them. "Ambassador Miller, I am Greeter Kolvac. Welcome to the Nexus," the alien said in perfect English. "The Council observation session begins in 1 hour. I will show you to your quarters." As they walked through the massive station, Jack noticed other aliens watching them. Some looked curious, but most seemed dismissive. Humanity was the new kid in school, and the popular kids weren't impressed. Jack's quarters were small but comfortable. As soon as Greeter Kolvac left, Jack turned to Lily. "We need to find a way to present our intelligence on the Void Striders. The Council is planning a military response, but they don't understand what they're facing." "The Security Committee might listen," Lily suggested. "They're meeting before the main Council session." Jack nodded. "Let's try." The Security Committee chamber was smaller than Jack expected. 5 alien representatives sat at a curved table, each from a different species. Ambassador Zorthak of the Valtraxians, the current Council leader, looked up as Jack entered. "Ah." "The human observer," Zorthak said. His tone made human sound like child. "You may sit at the back. This is a closed session, but we are allowing you to observe as a courtesy." "Thank you, Ambassador," Jack said, hiding his frustration. "But I actually have relevant intelligence about the Void Striders that the Council should consider before taking military action." A ripple of what Jack assumed was laughter moved through the committee. "How amusing," said a reptilian alien. "The hatchling wishes to teach the elders how to hunt." Jack stood his ground. Earth's deep space probes captured footage of Void Strider defensive capabilities. They have technology that can. "Human," Zorthak interrupted, "your species has barely left your home system. The combined fleet has defended this galaxy for 10,000 years. We appreciate your enthusiasm, but please, observe and learn." Jack tried again. "The Void Strider's defensive systems operate on principles we don't fully understand. Our preliminary scans suggest they can manipulate quantum fields in ways that—" Laughter interrupted him again. Several committee members didn't even try to hide their amusement. "Perhaps when your species has traveled the stars for more than a few decades, your opinions might carry some weight," Zorthak said with clear contempt. "Until then, human, observe and learn. The combined fleet will launch in 3 days to deal with the Void Strider incursion." Jack felt his face grow hot, but he maintained his diplomatic composure. "I understand, Ambassador. I hope the Council will reconsider and at least review our data." "The meeting is concluded," Zorthak announced, ignoring Jack's request. As Jack and Lily left the chamber, Lily whispered, "That went well." "They're going to get themselves killed," Jack replied quietly. "We need to try again. Contact Earth Defense Command. Tell Admiral Clark we need more concrete evidence, something they can't ignore." Jack looked back at the closed doors of the Security Committee chamber. The Council's arrogance would be their downfall. He just hoped he could make them see reason before it was too late. Jack paced in his quarters, waiting for the secure connection to Earth. The wall screen flickered and Admiral Susan Clark appeared, her gray hair pulled back tightly, and her uniform crisp despite the late hour on Earth. "Ambassador Miller, how did the Security Committee receive our intelligence?" she asked. Jack sighed and shook his head. "They laughed us out of the room, Admiral. They wouldn't even look at the data. The Council believes their combined fleet is invincible." Susan's expression hardened. "That's unfortunate. Our deep space probes captured clear footage of what the Void Striders did to the Proxima colony. If the Council sends their fleet without proper countermeasures—" "I know," Jack said, rubbing his temples. "They'll be destroyed. We need something more concrete to convince them. Something they can't dismiss so easily. I'll have our science teams compile everything we have. We'll send it on a priority channel," Susan promised. "In the meantime, try to find someone on the Council who will listen." After the call ended, Jack turned to Lily, who had been taking notes. "We have less than 3 days before the fleet launches. Let's go through all our data again and organize it in a way that even the most stubborn Council member can't ignore." They worked through the night. Lily compiled sensor readings while Jack organized tactical analyses from humanity's few encounters with the mysterious Void Striders. By morning, they had created a comprehensive report that clearly showed the danger. "This should convince them," Lily said, stifling a yawn. Jack wasn't so sure. "We need to get this in front of the right people." He requested an emergency session with the Council's Security Committee. Only 3 representatives attended, the bare minimum for a meeting to be official. Jack tried not to show his disappointment. "We appreciate your dedication, Ambassador Miller," said the Midorian representative, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But we have much to prepare before the fleet launches." Jack activated a holographic display showing the compiled data. "Please, just look at this evidence. The Void Striders have developed technology that can redirect energy back at its source, if your fleet fires on their vessels. Your species' paranoia is understandable, given your limited experience," interrupted the Midorian, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "But the combined fleet has technology you cannot comprehend. We have faced many enemies over thousands of years." Jack highlighted a section of the data. "This footage shows what happened to the Proxima colony ships when they engaged the Void Striders. Their weapons fire was reflected back at them with increased power. Your fleet will suffer the same fate." The 3 committee members exchanged glances. For a moment, Jack thought he saw doubt in their expressions. "The Proxima colony ships were using primitive human technology," said the Zinthari delegate, dismissing Jack's evidence with a wave of her spindly hand. "Our weapons are based on principles your scientists have not even discovered yet." "The physics are the same," Jack insisted. "The Void Striders appear to have developed a defense system capable of redirecting energy back at its source, if your fleet fires on their vessels." "That's quite enough speculation," interrupted the Zinthari delegate. "The combined fleet launches tomorrow. This meeting is adjourned." The representatives left without another word. Jack stood alone in the room, staring at the holographic display still showing the destruction of the Proxima colony ships. Lily entered after the committee members had gone. "That bad?" "Worse," Jack said. "They're determined to ignore us. We need to try something else." "What options do we have left?" Lily asked. Jack thought for a moment. "There's one council member who's been more open to humans than the others, Ambassador Ryla of the Xilarian Confederation. She might listen. And if she doesn't?" Jack looked at the footage playing on loop, the Proxima ships firing, then being destroyed by their own reflected energy. "Then we prepare for the worst. Contact Earth Defense Command again. Tell them to move our ships to safe distances from Council space. If the combined fleet falls, the Void Striders might not stop there." As Lily left to send the message, Jack continued watching the footage. Time was running out, and the arrogance of the Galactic Council might soon lead to the greatest military disaster in its long history. Jack waited outside Ambassador Ryla's office, checking the time display on his wrist device. The combined fleet would launch in less than 24 hours. This might be his last chance to prevent disaster. The door slid open, and a tall, slender alien emerged. Ambassador Ryla of the Xelarian Confederation had pale blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to look through Jack rather than at him. "Ambassador Miller," she said with a slight bow, "I received your urgent message." "Thank you for seeing me, Ambassador Ryla," Jack said, returning the bow. "I wouldn't have disturbed you if it wasn't critically important." Ryla gestured for him to enter her office. Unlike the cold, formal spaces of the other council members, Ryla's office contained living plants and comfortable seating. "The Xelarians have always believed in listening to new voices," she said as they sat down. "Even when those voices come from young species." Jack activated his data tablet and shared the display. "The combined fleet is in grave danger. We've analyzed the Void Strider defense systems and discovered they can reflect energy weapons back at the source with increased power." Ryla studied the data with careful attention. "This is concerning. Why hasn't the Security Committee acted on this information?" "They refuse to believe that humans could know something they don't," Jack said plainly. "They think our technology is too primitive to have gathered valid intelligence." Ryla nodded slowly. "Pride has been the downfall of many great powers throughout galactic history. What do you propose, Ambassador Miller?" "I need to speak directly to the military command. Someone who can delay the fleet launch until proper countermeasures are developed." Ryla considered this request silently for a long moment. "I can get you 5 minutes with the Command Council," she finally said. "Make them count." "Thank you, Ambassador," Jack said with genuine gratitude. "Don't thank me yet," Ryla warned. "Fleet Commander Dravkor is even more dismissive of humans than Ambassador Zorthak." 2 hours later, Jack stood before the Command Council in a chamber deep within the Nexus. Military leaders from all 12 Council species sat around a large table, reviewing battle plans on holographic displays. Fleet Commander Dravkor, a massive Voltraxian with scaled skin and 4 yellow eyes, looked up as Jack entered. "You have 5 minutes, human," Dravkor said. "Use them wisely." Jack wasted no time. "Commander, Earth has been studying the Void Striders since our first encounter 2 years ago. Our scientists have discovered that their defense systems can reflect energy weapons back at the attacker with amplified force." He displayed the Proxima colony footage again, along with detailed sensor readings. "We've begun developing theoretical countermeasures," Jack continued, "but we need more time to perfect them. I'm asking you to postpone the attack by 60 cycles. Let our scientists work with yours. We can find a way to neutralize their defense grid." Fleet Commander Dravkor examined the data briefly before sliding it back across the table. "The combined fleet has faced hundreds of enemies across 10,000 years. We have never been defeated." "This enemy is different," Jack insisted. "The Void Striders use technology that breaks conventional rules of physics. Your weapons will be useless against them." Another commander, a bird-like being with gleaming feathers, spoke up. "If their defenses are so powerful, how have they not conquered the galaxy already?" "We believe they're expanding slowly, testing boundaries," Jack explained. "Each engagement teaches them more about their opponents. The attack on the combined fleet could be exactly what they're waiting for, a chance to eliminate the greatest military force in the galaxy in one strike." Fleet Commander Dravkor stood up, towering over Jack. "The attack plan is set. We launch in 18 hours. Pride comes before destruction," Jack said quietly, an ancient human saying. "And presumption comes before dismissal," replied Dravkor. "You are dismissed, Ambassador Miller." Jack left the chamber, his heart heavy. As the door closed behind him, he found Ambassador Ryla waiting. "They wouldn't listen," he told her. "I feared as much," she replied. "What will you do now?" Jack's expression hardened with determination. "Find another way. There's still time before the fleet launches. I won't give up until they're safely on their way back home. Jack sat in his quarters, staring at the star map showing the combined fleet's planned route to the Void Strider territory. In less than 8 hours, over 1,200 warships would jump to faster-than-light travel and head toward what Jack was certain would be their destruction. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. Expecting Lily with an update from Earth, Jack was surprised to see a human man in the uniform of Earth's science fleet. Ambassador Miller. I'm Lieutenant Commander Alan Foster of the Earth science vessel Horizon. May I come in? Jack stepped aside, allowing the officer to enter. What brings a science officer to my quarters at this hour, Commander? Alan glanced around the room before speaking. Admiral Clark sent me. Our ship has been docked at the Nexus for repairs for the past week. We've been monitoring Council communications. The fleet launches in 8 hours. I know, Jack said, his voice heavy with frustration. I've tried everything. They won't listen. Alan nodded sympathetically. That's why I'm here. We've been conducting our own research. He activated a small device that projected a hologram between them. This is new analysis of Void Strider defensive capabilities. It's worse than we thought. Jack studied the hologram, showing energy patterns he hadn't seen before. What am I looking at? Their quantum reflectors don't just redirect energy. They amplify it. Alan explained, his face grave. We discovered this by analyzing the remnants of the Proxima colony attack at the subatomic level. Jack's face paled. How much amplification? Exponential. A direct hit from the combined fleet's main weapons would be reflected back with approximately 4 times more power. The entire front line would be destroyed instantly, and the energy cascade would continue through their formation. Jack stood up and began pacing. We need to warn them again. This changes everything. The Command Council has enacted communication silence protocols. Alan reminded him. Standard procedure before a major offensive. Jack activated his communication device. There's one person who might still listen. Ambassador Ryla has been more reasonable than the others. To Jack's relief, Ryla answered his call and agreed to come to his quarters immediately. When she arrived, Alan showed her the new data. This is most disturbing, Ryla said after reviewing the information. The fleet will be annihilated. We need to stop the launch, Jack insisted. Ryla's expression was solemn. The launch sequence has already begun. Fleet Commander Dravkor has enacted communication silence protocols. No messages will reach the fleet now. There must be something we can do, Jack said, desperation creeping into his voice. Ryla hesitated, her large eyes darting between Jack and Alan. There is one option. It's unprecedented, but I could grant you emergency address privileges on the all-fleet channel. Would that override the communication silence? Jack asked. Yes, Ryla confirmed. It's a system designed for use only in the most extreme emergencies, when the Council itself is under direct threat. Isn't that exactly what's happening? Alan pointed out. If the combined fleet is destroyed, the Council will be defenseless against the Void Striders. Ryla nodded slowly. I will need to use my highest authorization codes. If I am wrong about this, my position on the Council will be forfeit. And if you're right, you'll save thousands of lives, Jack said. Ryla seemed to come to a decision. Follow me to the Emergency Communications Center. We don't have much time. As they hurried through the corridors of the Nexus, Jack felt a small spark of hope for the first time in days. If he could reach the fleet, if he could make Fleet Commander Dravkor listen, there might still be a chance to prevent disaster. Alan checked his data tablet as they walked. The first ships are beginning to move into formation for the jump to FTL. We have less than 30 minutes before they're committed to the attack plan. Then we'd better hurry, Jack said, quickening his pace. The fate of the combined fleet, and perhaps the entire Galactic Council, now rested on whether Jack could convince them to listen to the young, primitive species they had so casually dismissed. The Emergency Communications Center was a small, circular room deep within the Nexus. Screens lined the walls, showing the positions of all ships in Council space. Jack could see the combined fleet forming up near the jump point, hundreds of ships moving into precise formation. I must inform you that what we are about to do violates several Council protocols, Ryla said as she placed her hand on a scanner. If we are wrong. We're not wrong, Jack assured her. And if we don't do this, thousands of lives will be lost. Ryla nodded and began entering a complex series of codes into the main console. Alan stood by the door, watching for anyone who might try to stop them. The emergency channel is active, Ryla announced. You will have approximately 90 seconds before security protocols trace the signal and cut it off. Jack stepped up to the communications panel. How do I begin? Simply speak, Ryla instructed. The system is now broadcasting to all fleet vessels simultaneously. Jack took a deep breath. This is Ambassador Jack Miller of Earth to all ships of the combined fleet. This is an emergency communication. On the main screen, the image of Fleet Commander Dravkor appeared, his yellow eyes wide with shock and anger. Ambassador Miller, this intrusion is a violation of. Listen to me, Jack interrupted. Your entire fleet is in danger. We've completed our analysis of Void Strider defenses. If you fire upon their ships, your weapon's energy will be reflected back at quadruple strength. This is outrageous. Dravkor shouted. Security, cut this transmission. Wait, Jack pleaded. We've uploaded the data to your science vessels. Check it yourselves before engaging. Other faces appeared on smaller screens, captains of various ships in the fleet, all looking confused or angry at the interruption. The Void Striders have developed quantum reflection technology. Jack continued quickly, knowing his time was short. They don't just block energy weapons. They absorb the energy, amplify it, and redirect it back at the source. One of the science vessel captains spoke up. We are receiving the data now. Fleet Commander. Ignore it. Dravkor ordered. This is a human trick to delay our attack and make them appear more valuable to the Council. Please, Jack said, his voice steady despite his desperation. Verify the data. Delay your attack by just 6 hours while your scientists review our findings. If we're wrong, you've lost nothing but time. A warning light began flashing on the communication console. Ryla looked worried. They're tracing the signal. We have less than 30 seconds. Jack made one final appeal. Fleet Commander, the Proxima colony lost 3 ships to a single Void Strider vessel. Your fleet is about to attack a dozen of them. At least power down your main weapon arrays until you've verified our data. This transmission is unauthorized and will cease immediately, Dravkor declared. The combined fleet will proceed as planned. The screen went black. Jack stared at it in disbelief. They cut the transmission, he said, turning to Ryla and Alan. Did any of the ships receive the data? Ryla checked the console. Yes, all science vessels received the complete data package. But whether they'll analyze it in time, or whether Dravkor will listen to them if they do, Alan added grimly. We need to get to the observation deck, Jack said. It's the only place where we can see what happens without relying on official channels. As they hurried through the corridors, Jack's communication device chimed. It was Lily. Jack, Admiral Clark just contacted me. Earth sensors have detected Void Strider vessels moving to intercept the combined fleet. They've entered weapons range. Have they powered down their main weapons arrays? Jack asked, already knowing the answer. No, Lily replied, her voice tight with worry. All indicators show they're preparing to fire. The 3 of them reached the observation deck just as other council members were gathering. On the large viewing screen, the magnificent combined fleet had met the Void Strider vessels at the edge of the disputed territory. Jack watched in helpless horror as the fleet moved into attack formation. The Void Strider ships, dark and crystalline, made no aggressive moves. They simply waited like spiders in a web. They're charging weapons, someone announced. Ambassador Zorthak noticed Jack and approached him. Your foolish warning has been dismissed, human. Prepare to witness the might of the combined fleet. Jack said nothing. There was nothing left to say. All he could do was watch. The observation deck was crowded with council representatives and military officials. All eyes were fixed on the massive display showing the combined fleet facing the small group of Void Strider vessels. Compared to the enormous council warships, the Strider craft looked almost delicate. Dark, crystalline structures that seemed to absorb the starlight around them. Jack stood apart from the crowd, with Alan and Ambassador Ryla beside him. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, his jaw tight with tension. "All ships are in position," announced a Valtraxian officer monitoring communications. "Fleet Commander Dravkor has ordered all vessels to charge main weapons." On the display, Jack could see energy building in the weapon arrays of the frontline ships. The Void Strider vessels made no move to retreat or to power their own weapons. They simply held position, waiting. "Why aren't they reacting?" whispered one of the council members. "Do they not see their doom approaching?" "They see it," Jack said quietly. "They're counting on it." The room fell silent as Fleet Commander Dravkor's voice came through the speakers. "All ships, prepare to fire on my mark." Jack turned to Ryla. "We have to try one more time. There must be some way to stop this." Ryla shook her head sadly. "The command sequence has begun. Nothing can interrupt it now." 3, 2, 1, fire, ordered Dravkor. A brilliant flash of energy erupted as over 1,000 energy weapons discharged toward the Void Strider vessels. The combined power of the attack was so intense that the observation deck's screens automatically dimmed to protect the viewer's eyes. For a moment, the dark ships seemed to absorb the incoming barrage completely, disappearing from view within the energy storm. The council members began to cheer, believing victory was at hand. Then the energy stopped moving forward. "What's happening?" demanded Ambassador Zorthak. "Why has the attack halted?" Jack watched in horror as the massive energy wave paused, then began to swirl and condense around the Void Strider ships. The dark vessels glowed brighter and brighter, absorbing the energy completely. "They're doing exactly what we warned you about," Alan said, his voice barely audible over the growing murmurs in the room. "They're absorbing the energy and amplifying it." Suddenly, the Void Strider ships released the stored energy. But instead of firing in all directions, they focused it into a concentrated beam that expanded exponentially in power. The wave of amplified energy slammed into the front line of the combined fleet. Jack watched in stunned silence as the mighty warships began to disintegrate. The energy continued through them, hitting the second line, then the third. Ships exploded or simply vanished, reduced to their component atoms in an instant. "No," gasped Ambassador Zorthak. "This is impossible." The destruction spread through the fleet like wildfire. The remaining ships attempted to flee, but the cascading energy reaction caught most before they could engage their engines. The observation deck was filled with cries of horror and disbelief as the council members watched their invincible fleet vanish from existence. In 17 seconds, it was over. When the energy dissipated, only 23 ships remained from the fleet of over 1,200. All were heavily damaged and drifting helplessly. The silence in the observation deck was deafening. Jack looked at the stunned faces around him. The arrogant certainty replaced by shock and fear. Ambassador Zorthak turned slowly to face Jack. His proud bearing was gone, replaced by the hollow stare of someone who had witnessed the unthinkable. "How?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How did you know?" "We tried to tell you," Jack replied quietly. "We tried." Alarms began to sound throughout the Nexus. Emergency protocols were being activated as the enormity of what had just happened began to sink in. An aide rushed into the observation deck. "Ambassador Zorthak, the Void Striders are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're demanding to speak with the Council Premier and the human ambassador." All eyes turned to Jack. The fate of the Galactic Council now rested on the species they had dismissed as primitive and unworthy of attention. "I'll speak with them," Jack said, his face grim but determined. "And then we need to talk about what happens next." The Nexus had fallen into chaos. Council members rushed through corridors, aides whispered urgently in corners, and military personnel shouted orders that no one seemed to follow. The destruction of the combined fleet had shattered the Council's sense of security and superiority. Jack stood in the main council chamber alongside the Premier, a tall, gray-skinned being named Vexilor. The chamber, usually filled with representatives from all 12 species, was now half empty. Many had retreated to their private quarters to contact their homeworlds. "The communication link is ready, Premier," announced a technician. "The Void Strider representative will appear on the main screen." Jack straightened his uniform. He had not expected to become the voice of humanity in such a critical moment, but he was determined to represent Earth with dignity. The large screen at the front of the chamber flickered to life. The being that appeared was unlike anything Jack had seen before. It seemed to be made of shifting darkness with points of light like distant stars moving within its form. When it spoke, its voice was surprisingly musical. "I am Nexus of Thought, representative of the Void Stride Collective," it said. "We address the Galactic Council and the representative of Earth." Premier Vexilor stepped forward. "I am Premier Vexilor. Why have you attacked our fleet? This is an act of war against the entire Council." "We did not attack," replied Nexus of Thought. "We defended. Your fleet fired first, as we knew they would. As the human warned you, they should not." Jack felt all eyes in the room turn to him. He kept his focus on the screen. "The human understood what you did not," continued the Void Strider. "We have been observing Earth since they first ventured beyond their solar system. They learn. They adapt. They do not assume, unlike the Council, which has grown comfortable in its power." "What do you want from us?" asked the Premier, his voice less commanding than before. "We wish to establish boundaries. We have our territory. You have yours. We have no desire for conquest, only to be left in peace to continue our evolution." Jack stepped forward. "If that's true, why did you attack the Proxima colony? Those were peaceful settlements." "They were building weapons," replied Nexus of Thought. "Weapons designed specifically to harm us, based on flawed understanding of our nature. We removed the threat. And our ships that were just destroyed?" asked Ambassador Zorthak, who had entered the chamber quietly. "Over 10,000 crew members dead." "A regrettable necessity," said the Void Strider. "You would not listen to reason or to your human allies. Some species can only learn through demonstration." The chamber fell silent. Jack realized that the fate of the Council now hung in the balance. If the Void Striders chose to attack the Nexus or the Council homeworlds, there would be no defense. "We propose the following," continued Nexus of Thought. "A treaty establishing clear boundaries between our space and yours. A research exchange to prevent further misunderstandings of each other's technology. And the immediate elevation of Earth to full Council status." Murmurs filled the chamber. Earth, a full Council member. It was unprecedented for a species so new to galactic politics. "Why Earth?" demanded Ambassador Zorthak. "They are barely space-capable." "Because they saw what you could not," replied the Void Strider. "They understood a new thing without fearing it or dismissing it. This quality is rare and valuable. The Council needs such perspective if it wishes to survive the coming changes in our galaxy." Premier Vexilor looked at Jack. "Ambassador Miller, would Earth accept such a position on the Council?" Jack thought carefully before responding. This was not a decision he could make alone, but he knew Earth's leadership would recognize the opportunity. "Earth would be honored to join the Council," he said, "but as equals, not as junior members to be ignored when our advice is inconvenient." The Premier nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is a lesson we needed to learn." He turned back to the screen. "We will consider your terms and respond within one cycle." "That is acceptable," said Nexus of Thought. "We await your response." The screen went dark. As Council members began urgent discussions around him, Jack stepped aside to contact Earth. The galaxy had changed forever today, and humanity's place in it had changed as well. 1 month had passed since the destruction of the combined fleet. The Nexus hummed with unusual activity as representatives from all Council worlds gathered for a historic ceremony. Today, Earth would officially become the 13th member of the Galactic Council. Jack stood before a mirror in his quarters, adjusting the formal diplomatic uniform that had been specially created for this occasion. The dark blue fabric was trimmed with gold, representing Earth's oceans and the sun that gave life to their world. A chime at his door announced Lily's arrival. "Are you ready, Ambassador?" she asked with a smile. "Everyone is waiting." "Just about," Jack replied. "It's hard to believe this is actually happening. 6 weeks ago, they wouldn't even listen to us. Amazing how the destruction of an entire fleet can change people's perspectives," Lily said dryly. They walked together to the Grand Chamber, the ceremonial heart of the Nexus that was used only for the most significant events. The last time it had been opened was over 300 years ago, when the 12th species had joined the Council. The massive doors slid open silently, revealing a vast circular room filled with representatives from across the galaxy. At the center stood the Council Premier and the 11 other Council leaders, arranged in a perfect circle. A gap in their formation waited for Earth's representative. Jack walked forward steadily, aware of all eyes following his progress. Behind him came Admiral Susan Clark and Dr. Frank Howard, leading a delegation of Earth's finest scientists and military officers. The last month had been intense. Earth had moved quickly to share its research on Void Strider technology with the Council. Dr. Howard's team had made breakthroughs in understanding quantum field manipulation that showed promise for neutralizing the Strider's defensive capabilities. Meanwhile, Earth's defensive fleet had arrived at the Nexus, joining the remnants of the Council forces to form a new unified protection corps. As Jack reached the circle, Premier Vexlor stepped forward. "Today we correct a mistake," the Premier announced, his voice echoing in the chamber. "We allowed pride and tradition to blind us to wisdom. Earth warned us, and we did not listen. That error cost us dearly." He gestured to the circle. "But today we move forward together, stronger for the lessons we have learned." Jack took his place in the circle as Admiral Clark, and Dr. Howard stood behind him. The 12 other leaders extended their hands, tentacles, or appendages toward the center, and Jack added his own. "By the ancient traditions of the Galactic Council, we welcome Earth as our 13th member, with all rights and responsibilities therein," declared the Premier. A soft blue light surrounded their joined hands, sealing the ceremonial bond. As they stepped back, the assembled representatives applauded. After the ceremony, Jack found himself on a viewing platform overlooking the docking bays. Below, Earth ships and Council vessels were conducting joint training exercises. The sleek, smaller human craft moved nimbly between the larger alien ships, demonstrating evasive maneuvers that might have saved the combined fleet had they been employed. Ambassador Zorthak joined him at the railing. The once haughty Valtraxian's demeanor had changed dramatically since the disaster. "Your ships move like water creatures," Zorthak observed, flowing around obstacles rather than trying to overpower them. "Sometimes being smaller and weaker forces you to be smarter and more agile," Jack replied. "You were right," Zorthak said quietly. "Our arrogance nearly doomed us all." "It's an understandable mistake," Jack said diplomatically. The Council had been unchallenged for so long. "The Void Striders have been quiet since signing the treaty," Zorthak noted. "Your analysts believe they were testing our capabilities." "Yes," Jack confirmed. "Studying how we respond to threats, learning our weaknesses. And now they'll face a Galactic Council that includes humanity," Jack said, watching as the ships below formed into a new unified formation. "And we don't give up easily." The exercise concluded with a perfect synchronized maneuver, Council and Earth ships moving as one. Jack smiled at the sight. It had taken a catastrophe to bring them together, but perhaps this new beginning would make the galaxy safer for all species. The next 1,000 years will be very different from the last, Zorthak said thoughtfully. That's the thing about the future, Jack replied. It never quite turns out how you expect. Together, they watched the stars beyond the Nexus, where new challenges and opportunities waited for the 13 united species of the Galactic Council.